Hello guys and welcome to a midweek round of the Russian Football News Predictions League. Game week 25, only 6 games left of the season, and what a weekend we had just past. Some huge games in all areas of the table, really just mucking up everybody's predictions once again. Well, not everybody's, I'm sure some people did get some right, but we had at the top of the table in the title race a massive game between Krasnodar and Zenit. For European qualification, Orenburg, Rostov, massive game there as well. And then in the relegation area, we had Dynamo Moscow against Krylia Sovietov. We've got rivals fighting each other directly every step of the way. Yet again, guys, I know I haven't updated the league tables. There are a lot of factors for this. Partly I've just not been efficient with it, but my new job this season, I should say, has not been the most conducive to having a lot of time free. That will change soon. But anyhow, that's enough of housekeeping. What you guys want is to crack on with the games themselves. So, just to remind you, if you haven't already checked, Wednesday we will have 5 games and Thursday we'll have 3. Wednesday it will be 5 o'clock UK time kickoff. So that's the deadline. So that's tomorrow. So make sure, please guys, make sure you get involved. If you're watching the midweek round of English Premier League games, if you happen to be in England, then just make sure beforehand you've done it, 2 or 3 hours before. So starting off, we have Rostov at home to Lokomotiv Moscow. Rostov away to Orenburg last weekend. Now they were 3 points clear of Orenburg in 6th place. Now, just a reminder here, if you've forgotten, 5 teams in Europe get into Europe in the Russian Premier League, and the Russian Cup winner gets direct group stage qualification for the Europa League. However, these two, Rostov and Lokomotiv, are in the Russian Cup semi-final. Lokomotiv are second in the table at the moment. So if Lokomotiv Moscow win the Russian Cup, that European place goes directly to 6th place in the league, not runner-up in the Cup. And Lokomotiv Moscow will qualify through the top 5, whether it's Champions League or Europa League doesn't actually matter too much. What it means is 6th place in the league, if they win the Cup, will be Europa League. Which means Rostov dropping out of 6th place is a big, big blow. Replacing them was Orenburg, 3-0 at home. So that's a big, big blow for them. Lokomotiv Moscow had a very big game as well. They welcomed CSKA Moscow and they drew 1-1. Lokomotiv have a record of being practical rather than expansive, shall we say. They get the draws when they need them. I think they lack a certain cutthroat ability that, even though just the clinical finishes to matches. Last season, they did enough to win. This season, they're not playing badly, I guess, but in the big games where it could count, they could have still been in the title race. I don't think they are anymore. Well, I don't think they have been for some time, to be honest. So I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I think it'll be 1-1. Neither side are free scoring, to say the least. Lokomotiv have a bit more threat, but they're away from home, so that's why draw for me. 1-1. Okay, Akhmat Grozny at home to Krasnodar. Now, Akhmat last weekend, they were away to Anzhi. I'd almost argue they're more whipping boys than Yenisei at the moment. I'll explain more about why I think that later. But a good result, a point on the board. It's efficient and actually quite important. Akhmat Grozny, had they lost, would have only been 3 points ahead of the relegation playoff zone. So that gives them a bit of extra breathing space. It means they're now comfortably mid-table. 6 points clear, 6 games to go. They're not going down now. So there's less urgency for them. For Krasnodar, however, wow. Last weekend, welcoming Zenit to Krasnodar. That has got to be one of, if not the best game in the Russian Premier League era. David Sanson has written a piece on the website. Go and check it out at RussianFootballNews.com. Really, really good little reaction piece. It just blew us away, end to end, just pulsating game. And I actually thought in that type of atmosphere, Zenit would crumble. They have that slight mental block when it comes to these big moments when they need to show up. But they did, and that shocked me, I have to be honest. Krasnodar will be, well, they'll be hurting. They'll be fuming. And in terms of league responsibilities, they're third. which means not automatic group stage qualification, only playoff qualification. And that's if they hold on to it. They only have 1 point advantage over CSKA Moscow in fourth, one place below. So they have the urgency about them. Akhmat don't. And honestly, for that reason alone, I'm going for a win for Krasnodar. I'll go for 2-1 because Akhmat do have most of their danger men back fit. Odise Roshi, for example, he's been injured for most of his career in Russia, to be honest, but he is fit. So 2-1 to Krasnodar for me. Rubin Kazan at home to Ufa. Now, last weekend, it was a bit of a Russian football news derby. David Sanson's Rubin Kazan came to Yekaterinburg, my beloved Premier League side. I wasn't there, actually. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I couldn't afford the time or the money to drive 9 hours in the Siberian evening. So I didn't go. Anyhow, the quickest goal in the Russian Premier League season, Andrei Yegorichev opened after only 12 seconds outside the box. Lovely, lovely strike. Dimitri Polas equalised, but then a really clever sort of running away from goal header from Eric Bikfalvi gave Ural their second consecutive home win, which is something they don't often do. Again, okay, they have kept a clean sheet in the league finally, but this time they didn't. Rubin Kazan, it's hard to see where their next win is coming from. They haven't won in 6 games, I think it is. They're now only 3 points above the relegation zone with, like I mentioned, Krylia Sovietov with a World Cup stadium. Now, yes, Rubin Kazan have a World Cup stadium too, but I mean, it's going to be a bit of a bleak future for Rubin if they even threaten to go in the relegation playoffs. They wouldn't have any trouble staying up against third or fourth from the second tier. I'm not worried about their future, but it's not a great statement. Ufa, although their results are not great, they've only lost once in the last 4, and they were really unlucky to lose at home to Arsenal Tula last weekend. They were absolutely battering Arsenal's goal towards the end, but they just couldn't finish. I actually think they've not been playing too badly, although they are still down there in the relegation area. So I think this is going to be a draw. I think it's actually going to be a stalemate. I think it'll be 0-0. Most important thing for Ufa is just to make sure they don't get automatic relegation place for obvious reasons. They'd fancy their chances in the playoffs as well. A point, of course, you want the 3 points, but are they really likely to make 7 points advantage on Dynamo Moscow within 6 games? I think that's very unlikely. So they just have to safeguard not being caught by Angie, who are only 2 points below them. So a point would be good for them. And for Rubin as well. It would serve a purpose. So I'm going to go for 0-0. Okay, TSKA against Angie. Like I mentioned, TSKA got a 1-1 draw away to Lokomotiv Moscow last weekend. Yeah, on paper it's not a bad result, but it does put pressure on them once again if they want, certainly guaranteed, or even a playoff place for Champions League football next season. So like I say, at the moment they're in 4th, which is only Europa League qualification. But there's only 1 point between them and Krasnodar and a further point between them and Lokomotiv. So there's every chance they can get back in there. Pressure's on. They're playing Angie at home. Angie lost to Akhmat Grozny, who are not the best away team in the league. I really can't see anything other than a TSKA win. I'm going to go for 3-0 because they just look so dangerous. Right, moving on. Zenit at home to Dynamo. Well, that was, for me, possibly the best Zenit performance I've seen since I've started following Russian football, with the context, the slight lack in form of goal-scoring form anyway, of Artyom Dzyuba, and the opponents they were facing away from home, and they came away with a thrilling 3-2 win. That's a huge boost. That result, coupled with the other results, means they're now 8 points clear with 6 games to go. Title stairs. I mean, I called it a long time ago when it looked more obvious. Then I doubted it. Then I thought they were back on. Then I wasn't sure. But that really surely is as good as the title for them. However, I don't expect them to take their foot off the pedal. Dynamo Moscow, yes, they've got the urgency and the motivation. They're now they're 1 point outside the relegation playoff zone, but they cannot afford, obviously, to slip back into it. But I just don't think they're good enough. It's really that simple. The confidence Zenit will have after last weekend will be flying. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 win for Zenit. Moving on. Yenisei at home to Orenburg. Now, Yenisei, well, you would be justified in calling them the whipping boys. They're 8 points from possible safety now. They lost again at the weekend. They were away to Spartak Moscow. So, yeah, it's about a standard result, you'd say, but they made it difficult. They made Spartak work for it. And actually, I think they've not been playing too badly. A lot of their defeats have been quite narrow, and the performances have not been too bad. So, at home to Oldenburg. Now, Oldenburg up in 6th, you'd say, well, they should be favourites. And of course they are. On paper, they're the better side. But, big but, away from home, it's always a fact. It doesn't matter what league you're in. They have conceded 18 goals away from home. Only one other team outside the relegation zone has conceded more on the road. So I think this is every chance of being a draw. So I'm going to go for 1-1. Okay. Then we have Krylia Sovietov at home to Ural. Now, Krylia lost that really important relegation battle against Dynamo Moscow last weekend and are now in the relegation playoff zone. Slightly damaging for them because they've now lost 3 of the last 4, and that early optimism after the winter break when they made a lot of experienced signings like Alexander Samedov, they have Roman Shishkin, of course, and Jano Ananidze. He scored on his debut, I think it was, but he's slightly gone off the board since then. So it's starting to look a little bit worrying for them. Ural away from home, well, they concede a lot of goals. They've conceded 36, which is only 5 fewer than the worst defensive record in the entire league. Away from home, Ural have conceded 21 goals in 11 games. So it kind of tells the same story. But they are on an upturn of form, unbeaten in 3. So I think they'll get a point, which will be very valuable for them, given that they are, at the moment, only 3 points ahead of the next highest relegation place. I'm going to go for 1-1, partly for the lack of attacking threat that, well, to be honest, both sides have shown in recent weeks. Okay. And then finally, we have Arsenal Tula at home to Spartak Moscow. Now, Arsenal Tula are still very, very strong at home. They have scored 22 goals, which is, they were actually the top goal scorers going up to about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Zenit and Krasnodar have scored more at home now. But the point is, they're very strong. They've only lost once at home. Spartak Moscow, well, they did the job last weekend. At home to Yenisei, but it was 2-0, fair enough, not a bad result, but they're so unpredictable at the moment. They can utterly collapse, or they can be devastatingly brilliant, even within one game. So for this game, I think Arsenal's home form is going to actually tell. I think Arsenal will win this one, and with that win, they know that they can put pressure on and hopefully even overtake Oldenburg. But better than that, they're only 4 points behind Spartak. Arsenal win, the gap becomes 1, automatic qualification for Europa League qualifiers. Sorry, I should say, not group stage. So motivation is there. I think they will have enough. I think they will do it. I don't think they're likely to score a lot. So I think it'll be an efficient 2-0 win to Arsenal Tula. Okay, guys, that's it for the midweek roundup. Now, please get them in as early as you can today, if possible, for obvious reasons, because tomorrow the deadline is 5 o'clock UK time. And for those of you in the UK, you don't want to leave it until you're in the middle of your working day and then you forget. So please, please, please get your predictions in. And for the weekend, I'm going to have to do that preview video most likely on Friday, because the midweek games are happening on Thursday. So again, we're not going to have much time before those. So keep your eyes peeled on Friday for that. Anyway, good luck. Do, as usual, Facebook page, Russian Football News, and comment below this video on the Facebook page, and good luck.